of mud hit her shoulder before she even realized they had decided she was not leaving the woods alive. Kneeling in a shallow grave, rain pouring down her face, she finally understood the flashing police lights behind the trees were not there to save her, but to keep others away. Her hands were cuffed behind her back, knees sinking into wet earth. She looked up and saw 3 uniforms she had once trusted. Their badges looked dull under the storm, their faces empty, as if this was just another task before dawn. They ordered her to keep her head down, not out of mercy, but because it made the shoveling easier. Each heavy scoop landed closer. Dirt slid into her collar, pressed cold against her skin, while rain and soil mixed into a sound that felt final. She tried to speak, about evidence, names, recordings, but one officer leaned close and whispered that accidents happened all the time in places like this, especially to women who asked the wrong questions. What none of them noticed was the man standing uphill among the trees. Rain soaked through his jacket, his breathing slow and controlled, trained through years of war. His eyes missed nothing. Beside him sat a large military dog, muscles tight, ears forward, silent, not because he was calm, but because silence meant survival. The Navy SEAL had followed the unmarked cruiser hours earlier. Instincts told him this wasn't a bad arrest. It was an execution wearing a badge. Below, panic clawed at the woman's chest as dirt rose higher, her legs going numb. Fear, when it realizes there is no escape, becomes alive. Mud splashed her face. She thought about the files she almost ignored, the truth she nearly walked away from. Above her, an officer joked about tire tracks washing away. A flashlight swept the trees, just short of the SEAL's position. The dog released a low growl. The SEAL tightened his grip. He knew time was running out. The next shovel rose heavy with mud. The woman looked up at the dark sky, unaware she was no longer alone. Somewhere in the rain-soaked trees, a soldier and his dog prepared to turn a grave into a battlefield. The dog exploded from the darkness, not barking, but releasing a sound like tearing metal, a warning that froze every man in uniform. The SEAL moved instantly, sliding downhill through the mud as if gravity itself had chosen a side. He shouted for the woman to keep her head down because chaos, used correctly, was a weapon. One officer reached for his radio. The dog hit him with trained force, teeth stopping inches from flesh. Another slipped backward in the same mud he had been using as a weapon. The third raised his gun, hands shaking. Authority feels very small when it realizes it's no longer in control. The SEAL closed the distance before the barrel cleared his chest. One brutal movement sent the gun spinning into the mud. In the grave, the woman curled forward, sobbing as the pressure stopped rising. She was alive, breathing. The sounds above her were not death, but justice, arriving late, wet, and furious. The SEAL dropped beside the grave and cut her cuffs. His voice stayed low and steady as he told her she was safe now, even though both knew that word would take time to feel real. Behind them, the corrupt officers lay face down in the mud, zip-tied, their badges pressed into the same earth they had chosen as a weapon. The dog stood guard, rain rolling off his coat as if it meant nothing. The SEAL called in coordinates, not to local dispatch, but to people who wouldn't make this disappear. He understood corruption survives when silence does the work. Sirens finally approached through the forest. The woman was helped out of the grave, legs shaking, clothes soaked and stained. But with every step away from the hole meant for her, her spine straightened. She looked back once at the man and the dog who had appeared out of the storm like something unreal. She couldn't find words, but her eyes carried a truth that didn't need them. Later, headlines would speak of bravery and exposed corruption, but they would miss the quiet moment when the SEAL placed his jacket over her shoulders. They would miss the moment the dog gently pressed his head against her knee, grounding her in the simple fact that she had survived. In the woods, rain erased footprints and tire tracks alike. But one thing remained unchanged. Sometimes evil almost wins, and sometimes it doesn't, simply because someone was watching when it mattered most. This story touched millions of hearts. If it touched yours, let us know with a like. Comment your country name and subscribe or follow for more stories like this.